Okay, so welcome back. Today we're going to show you how to generate and modify and read and save Excel spreadsheets in your C# Visual Studio Windows Forms application. And this is really very important, especially in the engineering, science, business world where spreadsheets are really important. And a lot of people know, or at least have some familiarity with spreadsheets and working with them. And we're going to show you a free and open source library that allows you to do all of that. And basically you can do pretty much whatever you can do in Excel in your C# application. Now previously we did a series talking about how in Excel itself there is a programming language you can use called VBA or Visual Basic for Applications that also allows you to write fairly complicated code to modify and to set up your Excel spreadsheets. And that's nice if you're familiar with Visual Basic and can use it in Excel. It does a lot of things, but all of those things can also be done in your C# application, and it may make it a lot easier for you to work with Excel spreadsheets. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to generate this very simple spreadsheet you see here. Basically everything here was generated in a C# Visual Studio Windows Forms application. We generated all the data, we calculated an average, we did a column chart, and all of this is done in our C# application using a free and open source library called EPPlus. So here is the GitHub page for EPPlus. And again, this is free and open source. However, it is free for non-commercial use only, and that's important. I encourage you to come to this GitHub page because it does have a wiki, which is going to be important to help you understand how to write some of the codes. We click on the wiki, and over here on the right, we've got what the different versions are, and then it goes down and explains how to do different things. Of course, this again is free and open source. Doesn't mean it's going to have what you need, and whether the documentation is what you need is a big guess, but it does have some helpful stuff. Also, there is some good, as we'll see in the code, there is some good IntelliSense that can help you figure out the code and the format. Also, they do rely a lot on sample projects. In other words, they will give you some sample code inside this EPPlus, which you can go through and see if you can figure out from the code how all the formatting is and all the functions. Unfortunately, with sample code, it doesn't really tell you what the results are for that particular code, so you have to do some legwork to figure out what it does. But you can run the sample code and see what the results are. So let's take a look at how you can implement this in your C# application. So now to install EPPlus, you're going to go to your project, right-click, Manage NuGet Packages, and you're going to search for EPPlus by EPPlus Software AB, and just download that. So now when it's done installing, you will get this readme.txt pop-up, which is explaining the commercial, non-commercial license requirements, and this may be a little bit different from what you're used to, but it's really simple, straightforward. What it does is it describes the license and how you can define whether you're using a commercial or a non-commercial license. And this is important. You're going to have to include a line of code in your application to define whether it's commercial or non-commercial. So here it will explain a number of ways to do that via code in C# or appsettings.json or web.config. We're going to do a very simple way in code in C#. And what you need to do is define one line of code that says either you're using a commercial or a non-commercial license. So if it's commercial, you're going to copy and paste this line that says Excel package.licenseContext equals licensecontext.commercial. In our case, we're going to use this line, which says Excel package.licenseContext equals licensecontext.non-commercial. So if you're doing the non-commercial, you just copy this and we're going to paste it into our code. So copy this line of code and we're going to jump into our Form 1. And here is our Form 1. And in our public partial class Form 1, we've got our public form, the standard initialized component, And I'm just going to paste that line of code for the non-commercial license right after that. And then we can go in and start using it. Now, the using statements, we're using Office Open XML and Office Open XML.drawing.chart because we're going to be adding a chart to our Excel spreadsheet. And then System.io and Windows Forms. So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to define our output Excel file, an XLSX file, and we're going to do that using the file info. We're going to say file info, we're going to call it file is a new file info, and we're going to give it the path to the new XLSX file we're going to generate. Now, we're also going to say, hey, if we've already generated that file, when we start this up, we want to delete anything that's existing because if we don't, it will just append to whatever file exists. So we're going to say if file.exists, then file.delete. And at this point, we can start writing our code to generate the data in the XLSX file. And here is the very simple spreadsheet we're going to generate in EPPlus in C#. And you can see it's got, over here, it's got two columns with X values and Y values. And we're going to chart those 25 values in this column chart. And then we're going to take this B column and we're going to calculate the average. And then we're going to print out the dimensions of this worksheet. And you can see it goes from rows 1 to 25 and columns 1 to 4. A, B, C, D, 1 to 4. And we're going to print out what's called the address of this worksheet, which is from A1 to D25. So it's calculating where the data is in this worksheet. And then we've got a column chart with the X values versus the Y values. So pretty straightforward. So let's take a look at how we can do that in C#. So once we've got the file configured and we delete it if it already exists, we're going to use a using statement and we're going to say var package is a new Excel package and we're going to feed it the destination file name right here. That's how EPPlus works. You deal with a package which is converted to this file, and with that package we're going to start to access the worksheets in that workbook package. So we're going to have a using statement and we'll expand the using statement. We've got a bunch of stuff here we'll go through, but at the end of setting up the data and the chart, we're just going to do a package.save, which will save that worksheet, that workbook, to that file, that XLSX file. The using statement means that it will basically dispose of anything we've done here and clear it all out. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to add to our workbook a worksheet. And you can see here we've got a worksheet, and as you know with Excel you can just add more worksheets, but we've got one main worksheet called main sheet. Right, so we're just going to have one worksheet in our workbook. So we're going to say package.workbook.worksheets.add, which adds a worksheet to our workbook. And here's the name of it, main sheet. And we're going to define that as WS, which is an Excel worksheet. So now we can access all of the properties of this worksheet, the columns, the values, and so on. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set the format of those two columns. And again, we've got these columns. These want to be in numeric format with 2 decimal places. So we can select the entire column. Now with EPPlus, you can either select an entire column or just specific cells or a range of cells. But we're going to select the entire column, column 1. And again, these are not 0-based. These are 1-based. So the A column is column 1. And we're going to define a format of those cells, all of the cells in that column. And we're going to use the style.numberformat.format equals, and we're going to give it this format. We'll show you in some of the resources some of the other formats, but for now we're just going to use a numerical 2 decimal point format. We're going to do the same for column 2, which is the B column. So that defines that all of the cells are going to be numeric. Then we're going to define the size of the font used for all of the cells in the worksheet. And we're going to say ws.cells, and this is where we define a range from A1 to D25. And recall, we're going from A1 to D25, which is from here to here, which is the entire range of all those cells. And we're going to say A1 to D25, the style.font.size is a size 18. Then what we're going to do is we're going to start filling in numbers to the A column and the B column. And we can do that in a couple ways. We're going to take the ws.cells from A1 to A25, and we're going to use fill number. And with fill number, you can specify a starting value and a step value. So, for example, we're going to start with A1 is going to be value of 1, and subsequent cells, A2, A3, A4, A5, and so on, are going to be incremented by 2. Now, there are other variations you can do, but this gives you an example how you can fill numbers into all of the cells in a range. We're going to start with 1. The next one is going to be 1 plus 2, which is 3, plus 2 is 5, is the next one, and so on. Now we need to add some formulas. So what we're going to do is we're going to set in the B1, the first cell in the B column, we're going to set a formula. So cells B1.formula equals the same as you would enter in a cell the formula in Excel. However, normally in Excel you need an equal sign here. But with EPPlus you don't have an equal sign. You omit the equal sign, and all you do is in a string you put the formula you want. So we've got this formula in this first cell, and you can see if we go here, here is the formula, A1 times 3, but what we now need to do is copy it to all the other cells. So to do that, we say the cells B1 to B25, so all of these cells, we're going to define what the formula will be, and we're going to say it is equal to WS cells B1, that we already put it into B1. Whatever that formula is that we put into B1, put that in all of the B1 to B25 cells. And then you can see it automatically increments. So the B1 formula takes the A1 value, the B2 takes the A2, the B3, so it automatically increments. So it's the same as if you had taken a formula and done this bottom plus sign and copied that to all the others. It does exactly the same thing. So now we have filled in the numbers in the cells in the A and B columns. And what we want to do is we want to have another formula that takes all of the values in the B column and gets an average. And there are many, many different types of numerical and other types of formulas you can use. But what we're going to say is in cell D1, we're going to insert a formula. So you got to make sure it's a dot formula, which specifies this is going to be a formula. And we want the formula to be the average of the range B1 to B25. And then in the C1 cell, right here, we're just going to put a text string that says the average is, and in D it's going to be whatever the average is calculated. So we just say the value, since it's not a formula, it's a value, we just say average with a colon. So now the next thing we're going to do is add a column chart. And to do that, the chart is considered a drawing. So we're going to say worksheet.drawings.add_chart, and we're going to specify that the name of the chart is column chart, and we're going to choose the chart type. And to do that, we say eChartType.columnStacked. And if you use the IntelliSense, you can say dot, and you can see there's many different types of charts. There's cones, cylinders, donuts, lines, marked, pie, and so on. But we're going to say column stacked. And that gives us a chart that we can then modify as we want. So the first thing we're going to do is set the position. And this is in pixels. It sets the top left corner of a drawing, in our case a chart. And we're going to set the pixel top is at 100 and the pixel left is at 400. So it's going to go down 100 and over 400 to put the top left corner of the chart. And we're going to set the size as a percentage of the normal size. I set 150% to make it a little bit larger. And that gives us a chart which is down 100 and over 400 pixels, and it's 150% scale. Now I've also chosen the chart.legend remove. And then we've got that all configured. All we need to do is we need to define what series it's going to chart. Chart.series.add, and we put in the Y values first, what's actually going to be plotted, and then the X axis values second. Okay, so keep that in mind. It's Y first and then X. So we're going to say the series.add cells B1 to B25 is the Y values. ws.cells range is from A1 to A25. And that automatically will do the charting with those values. Now we can also get some information about what is the dimension of this worksheet. Again, it's going from columns 1 to 4 and rows 1 to 25. And often you're going to want to get that information to define what's the actual data. Now what it does is it looks for cells that have values, and if it doesn't have a value, it considers that that's the end of the worksheet. So that's why it stopped at 25 and it stopped at column D, which is 4. So it says we're going from A1 to D25. So that's good information if you're going to want to know where is the populated data in your worksheet. So we can say, we're not using this, we can post in the D2 cell a value, which is the worksheet dimension.rows. So it will tell us how many rows, and we can also post in another cell dimension.columns to string. Now to get this total address range, it will print out A1 to D25. We can say ws.dimension.address, and that will give us A1 to D25. We're going to call that the last address, and we will put that as a value into D4. So these are going to be important. There's other ways you can get the different values very quickly. I've seen people go through and do lots of complicated loops in order to figure out what's the last row or last column, but really it's just a one-liner, so it's very easy. So once we got that, we can do cells.autofit columns. That will autofit the width of the columns. And then when we're all done, you can do many other things here, but when we're all done, we're just going to say package.save, and that will save that as the test.xlsx, and it will save it as this file. So that's a basic introduction into EPPlus with your C# Visual Studio Windows Forms application. If I get any views, I may go into more detail in the future. If you like any of these videos, I encourage you to hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, but most of all, please let others know that we're here so we get some views. Really appreciate it. Otherwise, take care. Have a really good day. Thanks.